Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Sector 5. I am your host, as always, Cody the Hangman Heinzman, and I am here to talk about the Amazing Digital Circus. And for those who are aware, the finale dropped technically 2 days ago at this time that I'm recording this. And I'm here to give my thoughts on the series as a whole. And this might be coming out of left field because we've not talked about the Digital Circus at all on the channel. But I watched the finale in theaters. I did go see it before it dropped. And had to wait for it to drop again to really evaluate and kind of figure some things out with the show and see if I can come up with some theories, or some of the theories that I've heard or thought of myself were true or not. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is I'm going to be talking about the characters and kind of my thoughts on the series as a whole. And kind of like I did with my rookie video, I'm going to have a list of my thoughts and questions that I still have, wishing I had answers to, basically. So without further ado, let's get started. And there is a particular order that I'm doing the talking of the characters, and you might figure it out on the way through. So the first person that we're going to talk about is Zooble. And this is not so much going to be a ranking video, but Zooble, for what they were in this series, was interesting, but maybe a little underutilized. Because in the first, three episodes, she doesn't go on the adventure, but come episode 3, you kind of learn more about Zooble and the fact that, she doesn't feel comfortable in their body. And I know I'm kind of throwing pronouns around and everything. I'm pretty sure Zooble falls into the they/them category. So I apologize for any misgendering that I may have done. But Zooble having the body dysphoria of nothing feels right was an interesting catalyst to really show that their bodies in the circus are what their minds think of them. Zooble has all these interchangeable parts because they don't feel comfortable in their body. And that was fantastic to experience in the show. The Digital Circus, just as a whole, plays with so many topics and does it tastefully, does it well. So even with Zooble being underutilized, I feel they got the point across of what they were and really gave us as an audience an idea of, okay, why are the characters the way they are? And then the next one we'll go on and talk about, we're going to talk about Gangle, who is another, I feel, kind of underutilized character in the show. They have the duality with them of the happy and sad mask, and 9 times out of 10 they're more sad than they are happy. They just can't have happiness in their life, and they're trying their best to have that happiness, but just keeps getting knocked down at every turn and bullied by Jax, which really makes Jax unlikable at the beginning. Of course, this is not Jax's section that we're talking about. Gangle's episode, where we learn more about them at the fast food restaurant. They at one point was a manager at a fast food restaurant, and Zubul gives Gangle that new happy mask that's plastic, trying so it can't break so easily, showing that it's not healthy to mask your emotions. It's very fantastic, and it'd be interesting to see what more could be done with that character as well. Next character we're going to talk about is Kinger, and there's a lot more that I'm going to go about with Kinger in the questioning section later on. But he was just... You think he's just this crazy person at the first episodes and everything. And then you get to episode 3, where you learn that he has his sanity in the darkness, and he's just this dad-like figure to everyone in the circus, and he has a wealth of knowledge, and he's not just a crazy person. Kinger is so fantastic in the show, and I'll just love his inclusion in every aspect of him. It's just a shame that you can only have him sane in the dark. In the light, he's confused, scatterbrained, and just lost to the world. Which leads us now to Ragatha. And she really struggles in the circus, trying to cheer everyone up, trying to be likable, because outside the circus she's tormented. So she just wants someone to care, and she tries oh so hard just to make everyone happy that it's overwhelming and comes off as fake at sometimes. But and in the end, she comes around, and after a talk with Kinger, where she becomes the second person to really realize, hey, he's sane in the dark. He's really this fatherly figure. At episode 5, the interaction between the two, and the fact that after the first group abstracted, she was the first to come back to the circus. The first person Kinger had, and kind of the test dummy, really, the guinea pig to see if Kane could use the mind files to put people in the circus. So she just... I feel bad for Ragatha. Really feel bad for her in the show. She just wants a friend. She just wants to be liked. And I think it's really all I have to say on her. And we're going to move on to what's probably the biggest topic of the show. Jax. In the beginning of the show, Jax is just an ass. And he's kind of the comic relief of the show. So, for some, you know, that was an upside to him. And to some, it's a detriment. Like, some of Jax's actions, I can agree, was unexcusable. But for Jax's character to end up the way they did, just, it's heartbreaking. Jax's backstory really resonates with some people. That trying to have approval from the people in his life. And for those that are aware, yes, I realize I'm also once again misgendering. We learn Jax is trans, and that honestly, to me, was actually a surprise. If only not for the fact of Zubul. Like, we already have this kind of I might be saying wrong on this too, this non-binary type character in Zubul. So to learn that we have Jax, who's a trans in the show, is a little surprising in my opinion. But going back, I guess, you know, some of the interactions that Jax does, you know, kind of makes sense. With Jax's interaction with Pomni, you know, who wants a straight couple, you know? They just were putting up a act because they just felt they couldn't trust anyone. They couldn't put their faith is not the word, but they couldn't trust anybody in their real life. When they come out, they are met with laughter, which again does not excuse Jax's action in the circus, but it really makes you feel for Jax, because they want to be loved, but they just don't feel they deserve it. And it's just heartbreaking. Which leads us to the last topic that we'll talk about before we go into our questions. It's Pomni. And Pomni throughout the show has just been a great character going throughout. Always the one to lend an ear, even if they are, not happy with where they are. Like, she came into the circus and was the listening ear, even if it seemed like kind of a burden to her at some point. And what I mean by that is, if you remember in episode 3, which is the fast food, that might be episode 4. Let me try that again. Episode 4, the fast food episode, when Pomni is outside with Gangle and sees that Gangle needs to talk about something. She's like, oh god, we're doing this again. She puts a lot on herself, but is willing, has the capability of expressing her feelings and not just kind of being like Ragatha, where she's just wants to make everyone happy. Pomni wants to make everyone happy, but will call you out on your BS and be kind of like, oh god, here we go, gotta do this again. Because every episode, Pomni does end up having a heart-to-heart with somebody. Not so much the pilot, but episode 2, she has that heart-to-heart with Gummy Goo whenever he has that existential crisis of like, I'm not real. And then episode 3, she ends up with Kinger. Really not a heart-to-heart there, but has a moment with Kinger and learns what Kinger is about. Is willing to hear him out. And then episode 4 with Gangle. Episode 5, let me remember what episode 5 was. Because 6 was the guns. What was 5? 5 was the... Okay, it was the suggestion box one. And that one, she really tries to voice her opinions with Kane and being like, hey, we told you what we want, you're just not listening. And episode 5 in itself was just a great episode because we got so much backstory with all the characters. The only one that we really didn't was Kinger, which we got a good bit of his backstory in episode 3, but we had to have that mystery towards the end. And then episode 6 with the guns, she tries to crack through that shell of Jax, trying to be like, talk, just talk, and makes up with Ragatha, where after Ragatha thought, she failed Pomni. And then in the end, her doing what she can to try and save Jax from after he abstracted. She cares about everyone in the circus for someone that's just met them. I think I've rambled enough on the characters of the show. Let's get on to some questions that are still in my mind. Hold on. Before we get to questions, I'm realizing I'm forgetting a pretty crucial character to the show. The ringleader himself, Kane. How... We cannot talk about the Digital Circus without talking about Kane. So, my thoughts on Kane in this show. He starts off, you think there's not going to be much to him at the beginning of the show. He's the ringleader, he's the one that makes the adventures and everything, shows up and leaves. But turns into more of the antagonist in the end of the show. And if only to the detriment of himself, the limitations of what he is, being just this computer-generated thing that is trying to figure things out and can't take the feedback of the people in the circus because it's not the way he's programmed. He tries to put it all on himself and figure everything out himself, which makes him think that everyone in the circus hates him, which in a way they do. They just more hate the fact that he won't listen and can't comprehend that it's not necessarily his adventures that they despise. It's not having the free will to go on the adventures when they wish. And also it makes, it's understandable that if he did give him the free will, what ultimately is his purpose in the circus, If I'm not the ringleader, what am I doing here? But I think Kane has to be probably one of my favorite characters in the show. He is such a comical antagonist. You hate to love him, but he's just such a lovable character in the show. And there may not be too many questions that are still ringing up in here. But one of the things that I know I do want to talk about that I said we will come back to a little bit later on is Did Jax deserve to abstract? And in my opinion, I really don't think he did. Or, in a way, maybe he did deserve it. And I just wish he wasn't still abstracted at the end. Because for as much of an ass and a bad person Jax was, I think in most cases people deserve a second chance. And I just hope that we'll finish that thought a little bit later, actually. Let's go to another thing that is bothering me that I wish we would have got more answers to. And this involves Kinger. When did Kinger start going crazy? That is something that just I wish we would have got answers to. Why did he end up... I mean, I can kind of maybe surmise why he went crazy. You know, he's been in the system for however long. If we can go off the console, because I watched GT Live do their reaction to episode 8, and on the console it shows when Kinger was put into the circus, and then it showed when Ragatha joined the circus, who was the first person after everyone else abstracted and Kinger was by himself. And there was at least a 9-year gap. So at least for 9 years, Kinger walked around the circus by his own some lonesome. But even then, when Ragatha showed, he wasn't crazy yet. When they showed the flashback of Ragatha joining the circus, Kinger still seemed like he had his faculties. And I just wonder, when did he finally lose his sanity? And this now, the next question that I have will continue my thought that I had with Jax. Is, will we see some kind of sequel, we'll say, to the Digital Circus? And I know I've seen things online saying that, you know, this is not truly the end of Digital Circus, so we might see something more on the show. And if we do, I hope Jax can come back. I hope Jax gets freed from abstraction. Because, as I said, everyone deserves a second chance. And Jax, as much of a terrible person and everything, deserves it. And honestly, I think that's all I have to say. The Amazing Digital Circus, where it started off as this comedic show where a thing of chattering teeth with eyeballs sending characters on adventures turned into so many life lessons and deep dives into hot topics in this day of age, and done tastefully and well. Just was an amazing time. There actually is another question that kind of wriggles in my mind. Kane was he which one of the AIs of Kane was what was making him crazy in my mind? And at first I was thinking it had to be the original, the red Kane, which is Kane, and not the blue AI. But in the finale, Kane pulls out that blue AI and seems to go back to normal. So, was the blue what was causing him to go crazy? Or because what made me think it was the red AI, which was what was supposed to be technically Kane, is in episode 8, he's like, I'm the original, I'm God. Which, if we're going off of that, that would be the red one. But maybe it was just the blue one that was making him crazy, and the blue was just kind of maybe a second personality, where when he said I'm the original, that was the blue one, maybe thinking that it was the original and not knowing that Kane came first, you know. But now, I think that's all I have to really say about the show. I really would like to hear everyone else's thoughts down in the comments. Also, question towards all of you: did you go and see it in the theaters? Did you think the same thing as I? And like, there's gonna be spoilers everywhere, and I don't want to get spoilers, so I want to see this as soon as I can without any spoilers. Or was you willing to wait, and did you get spoiled before? It's open dialogue that I'd like to have. And what are your thoughts about the characters? I know this was kind of a spur of the moment kind of video for me, and I may have been all over the place, but then again, when am I not? I still hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the Amazing Digital Circus. And if you haven't watched the Amazing Digital Circus, because I know there's a good bit of people that I've talked to that didn't even know what the Digital Circus was, I highly recommend you watch it. And of course, if you watch this video, I did talk spoilers, but I hope maybe my talk of spoilers a little bit helps you watch the video, or maybe wait a little bit before going and watching the circus after you forgot what I talked about, and then maybe revisit this video. It's up to you. I think I'm done. I hope y'all enjoyed. As always, I'm Cody the Hangman Heinzman. That's just how it is.